Wonderful, wonderful. I can hear you clearly. Okay, thank you very much for that, Sally. All right, then. So apologies for that delay and for the technical issues on my part. It's an honor to meet each and every one of you. Thank you so much for making it for today's session. Today's session is about user experience, improving your online presence. And so let me just share my screen so I can take us through what I've prepared for us today. Sally, could you please confirm if you can see the screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so now when I was approached by Davis and the team, I was asked about how user experience researchers, user interface specialists can improve their online visibility. And I found it to be a very interesting question, considering we're in the age of social media, we have access to so many tools. And so one of the things I realized is we need to begin by understanding what online visibility is. So for example, take this example. We know these very popular memes that have been making rounds lately. We have the password gentleman who made an impact on Twitter, and we have the other meme in the bottom. Yes, these are people who are popular, and these posts have received as many likes as possible and shares even beyond maybe many popular user experience books, many popular user experience projects. Yet they do not last as long as, let's say, somebody who's sharing their 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 wireframes of a LinkedIn, or somebody who prepares a coursework of a Coursera. So this come and fade, and that's the difference between an online presence and a trend. A trend comes and goes, and it often just gives us entertainment value. And so online presence looks like James Clear's 3-to-1 newsletter. James Clear is a very popular writer who's written Atomic Habits. If you've read it, you know it's a masterpiece and gives people advice on how they can improve their lives by creating habits that are aligned towards their goal. And the thing about this is, after the book, he decided to make it a living and breathing material. And so he did this by creating newsletters. And every day, if you sign up for this, you receive 3 quotes, 2 ideas, and I think 1 encouragement or something of the sort. But also we have people who post, for example, their feedback on products that are in the market. So for example, we'll have a gentleman or a lady commenting on Safaricom's latest M-Pesa app, and they will give ideas as to how they can resolve the issues, perhaps to do with, let's say we can take a typical idea of maybe there's a delay in terms of transactions, or maybe the dashboard doesn't provide them with actionable insights. And so you can create that and post that over social media. But I think the thing that's most critical is for us to ask ourselves, I mean, online presence, yes, it sounds lovely. We want to achieve this. We want to be able to be the go-to person in terms of anything to do with UX and UI. But the question is, how do we start? And typically, our journey always shares a similar format like this. We attend an exciting webinar, we hear some great ideas. Somebody tells us about LinkedIn, about Twitter, about Instagram, how you can open a professional page. And so after that, we open a LinkedIn account, we connect with the speakers from the webinar and a few attendees, and then we register for a Webflow account so we can have, let's say, a portfolio for all our work. And then after that, we set up a professional Twitter account, because we know our personal Twitter accounts might actually hinder us from getting a job because maybe of the opinions we share or the opinions we hold. And then what happens ultimately is we write one post on LinkedIn, and then we go back to our daily routine. We go back to our studies, to our work. And that one post on LinkedIn survives for the next 1 year. And so what happens is this frantic movement to be fast on a social media platform. But at the end of the day, we don't have a long-lasting impact because we didn't really understand what our major goal is. And so the big issue there normally is that we've placed the cart before the horse. And we know this very popularly in anything to do with user experience research and design. So for example, whenever we have a UX project set up, we decide to open Figma first, or we decide to open Adobe XD. If you're a programmer, you open an IDE such as PyCharm or Visual Studio. If you're into data science, you open a Jupyter notebook and you start importing libraries. And so what happens is you don't have a problem definition, and so you don't have a solution that you're actually working towards. You have unattainable goals which are not measured, and so you're caught in between multiple possibilities and the ideal that you want to strive for. And what does that lead us to? The effect is anxiety. And this often characterized by how we are afraid to post anything because we are not too sure what we want to post. Two, we see that there's limitless possibilities provided by the technology that's available. You wonder whether you should post it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, whether in LinkedIn you should post it in a group to do with user experience research, whether you should go to Slack and post your work, whether you should popularize your portfolio using a link on your various accounts such as Twitter and Instagram. And so this anxiety is a consequence of limitless choices that comes as a result of not having a clear goal and objective. But also the other effect is if you write one post on LinkedIn for a whole year, and then you write another two posts in the next year, maybe on January, and then the next post in October, it shows a certain inefficiency. And so when somebody looks at your page, they're not absolutely sure which field you're actually operating. They don't know if you're a user experience researcher, they don't know if you're a data scientist, they don't know if you're a social activist, they don't know if you're a storyteller. They have no idea where to place you. And so what that does to you is it digitizes your inefficiencies. And the cost for this can be significant. So we know very well that hiring companies always look to LinkedIn to see what does this person actually specialize in? What are their passion projects? What are the key items and thematic areas that they're concerned with? And so what could we do to be able to place the horse before the cart? At this point, I'd like us to take a step back. We're thinking about having online presence. And so the question is, having online presence means that we're digitizing something that's already real, and that is your presence already. And so the question is, more critically, is what presence are you creating on your day-to-day basis, on a day-to-day basis? And so one of the best tips that you could use is always think about how you can leave a place better than you found it, especially people. And you can think about this from the perspective of user experience research and design, and even anything. If let's say you're in a project with a few friends, one of the things you could always ensure is that you are always trying to provide the resource materials to help the team to improve. Perhaps you could be the one who designs the design system, you're the one who provides the artifacts, you're the one who takes the difficult challenges. Perhaps everyone in the team doesn't really enjoy working on Figma and creating very high fidelity prototypes. You could be the person to actually take up that difficult task and make it easier for everyone. It could also be as simple as you're working with your team members, that you're the one who keeps up the schedule. And so you're the timekeeper, and you're the one who's ensuring that every workshop activities runs up to code. But I'd like to give us a few more practical examples that we could implement even today. One, you could your user experience challenge with a colleague or a friend. I insist on you working with a friend because it keeps you accountable, and two, you can receive feedback from your colleagues. And this feedback ensures that you are continuously developing. And remember, it's giving you the very material that you digitize for your online presence. And so one of the ways to ensure that you have a continuous flow of development is have open feedback sessions and schedule them at least every week. So after a sprint, sit down and ask 3 simple questions. What did I do right? What did I not do right? And 2, how can I improve what I did not do well? Those will give you some clear markers that you can action on. Then always work on providing constructive criticism. Don't just downplay somebody's project or give them unmerited praises. So for example, a constructive criticism could be, if let's say somebody has designed a call to action button that isn't within that in terms of the view towards the user, it's way down the screen. So it means in terms of visual hierarchy, it's the last thing the user considers. And you notice that this is a pattern that they have. So you realize that the core issue is that they don't know how to prioritize what the user tasks should be. You could approach that using the hamburger method. So first, acknowledge what they've done well. So perhaps they create very high fidelity mockups. So tell them that the high fidelity mockups look very enticing, they're very rich, believable, they're tactile, and the level of detail is surprisingly well. However, what do you think the user how could we make the user prioritize clicking the button to subscribe to this service? And then give them a moment to play around with the idea. And then after that, once they give you the idea that they could action, try and improve it. So if they say increase the size of the button, ask them, what if we place it at the top? What would that happen? What would be the effect of the same? And then play around with the idea and see them formulate the answer themselves. That is constructive because both of you get to work together towards the solution. Now, we're in a remote environment, and it's a very good idea to begin practicing how to work remotely through this. So use Zoom, use Google Meets, and ensure that it's consistent. It's better you focus on consistency over intensity. One of the resources that I've shared is the Daily UI Challenge. It has daily challenges for 100 days, which you can pair up with a friend so that every day you have a feedback session to see how well you were able to attain the goal based on the prompt that was provided. You could pick up a book and write a summary after each reading. Remember, you need to continuously develop to remain at the very edge of this industry. Everyone is improving by taking up new courses, and you want to be the very best in your industry. And so, one of the things that helps us understand whenever we read is performing a very short session, maybe 10 minutes of summarizing what we've read. That ensures that the ideas that you've gathered, the concepts are solidified within you and that you have a great understanding of them. If you can explain them in the simplest terms, the better. Now, I'd advise that you write this in a Google Docs format because once you want to digitize all your work, it's very easy to copy all your work from Google Docs to, let's say, your blog. And so you can create a blog where you actually indicate your understanding of an entire concept from beginning to end. Once again, on consistency. I know a few people who every day they choose to only read 30 minutes of any user experience book or even a technical book, for example, data science. So something to do with natural language processing, anything. And then they take 10 to 15 minutes to synthesize this. So 10 to 15 minutes, they write what they understood in the in the most simple language that they can afford. Now, volunteer to present a journal book, yeah? I mean, a journal paper or a book chapter each week. What this does is it helps you wrestle with the up and coming material in your industry because journal articles are normally the results of academics and professionals who are trying to answer very tough research questions in your field. The benefit of this is that it will push you to have to understand the concept. And so at the end of the day, what will be happening is while you're presenting this, you're actually teaching your colleagues. A good example is a data science community called TWML. They take books every week, every month, and decide that for the next, they take books every quarter, and then they make a call for volunteers to present at least a chapter. And what we've noticed over time is that the understanding of natural language processing within the community is increasing at an incredible rate. We have people also getting access now to better jobs, and also they get to share their ideas amongst themselves. We find some companies coming up from these interactions, and so it's a very rich avenue for you to push yourself. And since you get the opportunity to teach, you actually get to have a great mastery of these concepts. It also gives you an opportunity to improve your presentation skills. In any work environment, if you're a user experience researcher, UI designer, trust me, you'll have an opportunity where you have to defend the project that you're proposing, to defend the workflows that you're proposing, to, to talk up, to defend, for example, uh, why why the test results of, let's say, an A/B testing are justified as so, and why the product manager should take the direction that you're advising them to take. So these are very good opportunity for you to practice and to get comfortable facing a large audience and taking difficult questions. We tend to teach in a study group too. This is a bit more centered on, let's say, concepts. So for user experience, we can take the example of a concept like heuristics. So we can talk about heuristics and say, let's say, Davis will take heuristics for the next 2 weeks, and he'll prepare learning materials and activities for a group. A smaller group is always ideal because that will push you, first of all, to prepare high quality work and have attention to the learners in your cohort. Even if you don't have a deep understanding of the concept, the opportunity to teach means that you have to read and research on your material. It means you need to actually have a deep understanding and grasp of the concept. And so at the end of the day, you're the one who actually benefits. Remember, we're still not yet digitizing anything. We are just learning how to have real life experiences that create our presence, ensuring that everyone who meets you lives with the same comment, with the same idea of who you are. And that's where impact begins to form. Now, the thing is, after getting into a consistent habit of having these rich activities, we now need to digitize it. And this, I've come up with a very simple model for us to be able to visualize how we can do this. So at the bottom, I've just indicated the activities that we could have. A typical activity, let's say in 2 weeks. So let's say you have summary notes for 30 minutes every day at 5 p.m. for any book that you're reading. And then you present on a particular journal paper on Friday on Zoom. And then you have 100 days of coding that you're taking up. And so this is day 23. And then you're attending Game Changers webinar like today on Saturday. Now, after that, you want to digitize it. And that's where documentation occurs. Documentation occurs in various formats. So for example, summary notes, you could write them in a very simple Google Docs file and then post this on your LinkedIn. And then you could even write there a book title, and then you constantly updating the book title with posts. So any member of your audience is always seeing an update to do with your summary notes on a particular book or on a particular concept. And they expect it every day past 6 p.m. Because again, you're writing your summary notes for 30 minutes every day at 5 p.m. Now you've presented on the effects of using digital rewards on extrinsic motivation on Zoom. Record the session, and then put it up on YouTube. And let's say you're doing that every week. So it means every week you have a new video going up on YouTube without taking up the cost of actually setting up a professional production. And then you have 100 days of coding. So you're day 22, 23 or 100. You could post your wireframes. You could post your mockups on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on many social media outlets. But because you're posting every day, it means that every day somebody out there is expecting to see a new post, and that gives them a sense of anticipation. And since they see this consistency, they begin to form a certain level of reliability towards you. And that means, first of all, you're educating them, because when they see something to do with your presentation on a journal article, remember, not everyone who's watching it has a deep understanding of the same. And so they'll have a deep appreciation because you simplify it for them. If you've written 30 minutes you've written a summary note for a book every day, there's somebody who doesn't have the time to read that entire book. and your material will actually give them the insights that they need to be able to improve their workflow, to improve their professional development. So at the end of the day, you're actually serving many more people and actually having the very impact that converts haphazard posting into online presence, into actually online impact. And then when you attend webinars, it is a very good opportunity to actually ask questions, take initiatives, propose ideas. I mean, be the one who's actually trying to bring up contentious questions so that it can be an environment where people are trying to solve problems. That means that you're actually providing the speaker with an opportunity to improve first of all the delivery, and two, you're providing an environment where every one of your audience acquires the confidence to be able to take on challenges in such an environment. Now, in terms of the activities, that's where you have the most degree of control, because that's all dependent on your commitment and the amount of work you put into it. So if you set up your goal such that you have small repetitive tasks every day, it can be easier to achieve than having an intense model where you try to generate hundreds and hundreds of content within a few weeks. So for example, 30 minutes of reading every day, every week having just one session for a journal article, and every day taking up the daily challenges for the UI challenges. Now, in terms of documentation, you have a bit limited control because remember, you're placing them on social accounts. So you don't have too much control over how people respond to it. And then in terms of engagement, this is where your users actually respond to what you've written. They react to it. You don't have too much control again there. However, there's one way you can actually acquire a deep understanding of your audience, and that's through feedback. So for example, whenever you post anything on LinkedIn, you could include a link for feedback from where people can share what they thought of, let's say, your wireframe. Or even you could actually include that as a question on the post. In a tweet, again, you can actually invite people to share their thoughts, and then you could even add an incentive that if they send you a direct message, that you'll send them a few resources, and that will incentivize people to actually share with you what they think about your work. Now, feedback is where you get the insights of learning how to improve your activities, the activities that actually form your presence. Now, just a few practical to improve this. Set up a content development schedule. A timetable gives you an idea of what you'll be doing every day. It reduces the challenge of trying to understand what your next step is. Once you have a content development for, let's say, a week, you have an idea of what you're writing every day, you have an idea of what you're reading every day, you have an idea of which journal article you're presenting every week. Begin very small. Start with a content development schedule for 1 week. If you do well for 1 week, increase it to 2 weeks. If you do well for 2 weeks, increase it to 4 weeks. At 4 weeks, increase it to 2 months. You want to constantly build a habit of actually having activities that provide the very material for your online presence. So I've shared a template here which you can use. It's a very simple to use and you just use it with Excel. It includes the very different social media outlets such as LinkedIn and Facebook and even Instagram. So remember, consistency over intensity. And then another tip is if you set up 10 days to write an article, it will take 10 days for you to write that article. If you set 2 days for you to write that article, it will take you only 2 days to write that article. If you take 1 hour to write that article, believe it or not, you'll write that article within 1 hour. So work will spread to the amount of time that you're assigned. So don't be too easy to yourself. Set up a good challenge for yourself between very difficult and very easy. So perhaps if it's writing a 10-minute article every day, you can make it a daily activity instead of saying that article should take you 3 days. So that will be a very good place to start. Remember to start very small. Now, one of the biggest challenges with content development is a manual task of posting over various social media outlets. So, for example, if you're posting on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and then on your portfolio, it means that you're working thrice to actually achieve to share. I mean, you're working 3 times to be able to share your content. However, you can automate this process. And there is a wonderful tool called Zapier. What it does, it connects to various apps. So for example, if you've written an article on Google Docs, it knows once you create a new document, it will post this on your LinkedIn status, and it should post this on your portfolio, and it should post this also to your Twitter accounts. And that could really simplify your work and reduce all the friction between content development, documentation, and now having online presence. And it can even give you a sense of rhythm, so people can have a certain expectation of your post and receive it on time. Because unlike us, Zapier is automated. It doesn't get tired, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't forget. Provided you've written an article, it will be posted. It's not difficult to use, however, it can sound very daunting. And that's why I've included a tutorial for you. It's a very simple tool, and you can connect it with many, many apps. If you take notes using Evernote, it's there. If you take notes using Google Notes, you'll find it there, also with OneNote. And this will give you the opportunity again to be able to streamline your content development. Remember, you want to reduce as much friction as possible. Then this is another idea where you can set up a course. Remember, when you teach, you improve people's understanding. And the more you teach, the deeper the understanding you have of your content. And so Kahoot is a very simple tool where you can create interactive lessons to teach very simple concepts. And so you can look at the smallest concept you want to take, like conducting successful user interviews. You could even make it such as simple as designing call to action buttons. And those very small, minute modules could be your starting point. And then what you could do, what I'd advise is start with a free session. Start with a free session where people sign in and get to interact with it, because you get a lot of feedback. And these first few sessions will give you an idea of what your audience likes, because remember, you're developing these courses for your audience. And make it as simple as possible for yourself by breaking it down to small modules. That helps you not feel like it's a daunting task, and helps you actually get comfortable failing, because you know you're just focusing on very one granular idea. And then you could also set up a template. I mean, set up feedback templates for on Google Forms. One of the things you don't find yourself doing is creating feedback forms at the point where at the point where you're posting your work. You want to have this on the ready, so that every time you post your work over social media, the link is already available. Every time you give a webinar, every time you teach during one of the journal article sessions, when you are leading a book club discussion, have this on the ready. So after the session, you share it with your colleagues, because this will help you continuously develop your work, and it will help you understand what are the markers that help you improve engagement with your audience, which help them feel that you're having an impact on them. And remember, keep it very short and simple. Short and sweet is the best. So just 3 questions. What did I do well? What did I not do well? And what could I improve? And this will give you the areas of improvement where you can action on it. It's the fastest way to develop yourself as a user experience researcher, developer, and to improve your online presence and the impact that you have. Thank you. Any questions? Hello? Any questions? Feel free to unmute in case you have any questions. Hi, Nelius. Feel free to unmute.
Hi, hello. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask about posting your work on Twitter. So now that you've suggested you can post on social media to just gain an audience, would you have to start a new Twitter account? Let's say if you feel like it's not really professional, or you can just clean up and start afresh. What should you advise?
My advice would be start afresh, because the internet doesn't forget. And that's the challenge. Because also, remember, Twitter recommends your connections. It recommends who you'll be connected to, right? It recommends a few friends. It recommends the posts you'll see. And this is based on the history of the material you've been posting. And even based on the likes that you have. And so your visibility will be limited to the, for example, to the content that to the content that you have a preference for. Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Thank you very Nelius. Thank you very much, Nelius. Yes, Whitney.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Um, my question sort of relates to Nelius's question. When it comes to LinkedIn, maybe let's say you haven't posted that much on your account, or your account doesn't have as much when it comes to a history in posts. Is it still advisable to create a new LinkedIn account, given that in the years maybe you've spent on the platform, you've gained a lot of followers, and also you've followed a couple of people. Do you still need to open up a new account and like start the process again, if despite your account being dormant and you want to revive it with um, new content, new ideas? Would you still advise to?
So no, so I'd advise you actually build from that, build from where you are already, instead of opening a new account. Because unlike Twitter, at least in LinkedIn, you're creating professional connections. And so, yeah, just build from where you are. Don't create a new one. That would be my advice. Yeah. Thank you, Whitney. Any other questions? Mhm. Any other questions? None at this point? Hello, Davis. Mhm. So no questions, yes. Perhaps I could raise a question to the group. Sally.
Hi, I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, Miss K.
Hi. So, I wanted to ask, what if you want to post different languages on LinkedIn, like
Mhm.
maybe Kotlin? Not sorry, not LinkedIn, on Twitter.
Mhm.
So, what if I want to post different languages on Twitter? Is that okay on 100 Days of Kotlin?
So if I get a question, is it okay to post in a different language on Twitter and on LinkedIn?
On Twitter only, yeah.
On Twitter only. All right.
Okay, so
So
I've been post. Okay.
sure. Okay, you can give me a bit of context, please.
Okay, so I've been posting on LinkedIn, sorry, on Twitter. I've been posting Python, Kotlin, and mixing them. So is that okay? And I've been told it's not right to post all languages. I should choose one. So I have chosen Python, and I'm also posting 100 Days of Design also. So is that okay?
So when you're talking about language, you mean programming languages. Okay, I get the reason behind not posting many languages is because somebody wants to have an understanding of what your area of expertise is. So they want to know if your area of expertise is in Python, if it's in Kotlin, and so that my advice would be focus on one, at least in the meantime. Focus on one for a while until you feel that you're at a comfortable place to solve difficult problems using that language. Because remember, with a language, you can solve problems along different platforms, yes? Of course, for example, with Kotlin, you can use it to develop Android applications, but it's much more difficult to use Python to do the same. But if your key area if you are deeply focused on, let's say, data science, my advice would be focus on Python. If you want to focus a lot on software development, especially Android, focus on Kotlin. But focus on that will help you with your use case. And then in terms of the 100 days of design, you said 100 days of design, post them as much as possible because that doesn't it doesn't wonderful. It doesn't conflict the programming bit, yes. It's not in conflict with that. But again, for the languages, focus on the use cases. So for example, if you want to do data science, do a lot of Python. If you want to do development, do a lot of Kotlin. The benefit of committing, it gives you the opportunity to become an expert in your area of profession. If you don't commit, you end up learning many things, but at a very shallow level, and you can't be the go-to person. For example, if people are looking for a data scientist who maybe has an understanding of user research, so they can be able to quantify and analyze user behavior. You see, but if you have a bit of each, it means that they can't really rely on you for to be an authority in that area. Yeah. Is that very clear?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Karibu, you're welcome. I'll send a few links too in terms of the resources after this and even the presentation itself. Yes. Do we have any other questions? That was a very good question, Miski. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. I can see we don't have any more questions. All right, all right, all right. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to share this. In case you have any more questions, I'm available on the Slack channel, and I'll also share with you a form after this. I'd like to hear your feedback, and so I can see how I can even improve this experience for you. In case anything is not clear, feel free to reach out, and I'd like to now give Davis the floor. Davis. Okay, unfortunately, I can't hear Davis. So I think, let's see. Yes, so I'll share, let's see, Collins, I'll share links to the work, not to worry. And then, let's see. Yeah, so I'll share links as soon as possible. Yeah.